Hey guys, tonight we're diving into medieval people slept like kings because of one bizarre habit. Forget everything Hollywood told you. This is the real story, and trust me, you probably wouldn't last a day. So before you get too comfortable, hit that like button if you enjoy this kind of deep dive, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a snack, and let's jump in. It's midnight in a drafty 14th century village. Your bed creaks under the weight of straw that's, well, been used for far too many seasons. The smell. Imagine if a barn and a compost heap had a child. Congratulations, you're lying in it. But here's the thing. You're about to have the best sleep of your life. Not because of goose-down pillows or memory foam, but because of a habit so strange, so counterintuitive, that modern sleep scientists would raise an eyebrow, and then maybe take notes. You roll over, pulling a rough wool blanket around your shoulders. Outside, the wind whistles through cracks in the wooden walls. Somewhere nearby, a cow exhales a warm, hay-scented breath, because, yes, you're literally sleeping next to your livestock. That's not the bizarre part. Oh no, that's just Tuesday night. The bizarre part. It's about how you're going to sleep, and it's not all in one go. In fact, if you were a medieval villager, you'd think our modern 8-hour block of unconsciousness was downright unnatural. See, in the Middle Ages, the night was not one long stretch of dreams, it was 2 acts. You'd drift off for your first sleep, wake up in the dead of night, and then have hours, yes, hours, before your second sleep began. And what you did in those hours, well, that's where things get fascinating. Some prayed, some made love. Others went out to tend to their fields in moonlight. And some, perhaps the most dangerous of all, ventured outside for reasons they'd never dared to write down. But why did they do it? What did they believe about the night that made this rhythm feel natural, even luxurious? And more importantly, how could this bizarre habit actually make their sleep better than ours? Picture it. You wake up in that inky darkness, the fire in the hearth now just a faint orange glow. The air is cold enough to sting your nose, but your mind feels sharp, alert. You're not groggy, you're not reaching for coffee. Coffee's not even here yet. Instead, your body feels like it's meant to be awake, and everyone around you is, too. You can hear muffled voices from neighboring houses, faint laughter, maybe the low creak of a door as someone steps outside. This wasn't insomnia. This was the plan. And here's where the slept-like kings part comes in. That gap between sleeps. It was private, unhurried time. No lords barking orders, no market bells, no chores, just hours stolen back from the grind of survival. The rich might write letters or read by candlelight. The poor might simply talk with family in the quiet, or, if you're lucky, sit under the stars with someone you actually like. It was a second life hidden inside the night. But then you have to wonder, was this habit born out of choice or necessity? Did it start because medieval people were truly in tune with their natural rhythms? Or because something else, something stranger, was pushing them into the dark? And if this was the way people slept for centuries, what exactly happened to make us stop? The answer doesn't come from a dusty monastery scroll or some quirky noble's diary. It's buried in the rhythm of life itself, because in medieval times, night wasn't just the absence of light, it was a different world. A world where superstition and practicality slept in the same bed. Without street lamps, the darkness was thick, alive. You measured time not by glowing digits on a nightstand clock, but by the position of the moon, the crackle of the hearth, the first rooster crow, and in that deep black silence, The space between first sleep and second sleep became its own kind of sacred. Some people used that time for what you might call soul maintenance. They prayed, they meditated, they whispered secrets to each other that daylight would never hear. Others used it for the most mundane chores, mending clothes, checking on animals, even walking to a neighbor's house in the pale wash of moonlight. Imagine trudging through frost, your breath fogging in the air, just to borrow a pot. That was normal. And then there were the stories of those who wandered too far from the safety of home in those hours. People who didn't come back. It makes you think, if this was so normal, so ingrained, why did we abandon it? Because somewhere along the line, something shifted. Technology, culture, fear, or maybe something even more unsettling. It starts, oddly enough, with fire, tamed, packaged, and sold. In the late medieval period, candles became cheaper, oil lamps more common, and cities slowly pushed back the dark with torchlit streets. Suddenly, night wasn't quite so intimidating. People stayed up later, pushing first sleep further into the night, until it eventually swallowed the gap entirely. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about light. It was about control. A world split between day work and night rest was predictable. A world where people roamed in the middle of the night. Less so, authorities, both secular and religious, started frowning on the habit. Quiet hours became law. The night watch wasn't just to keep criminals out, but to keep you in. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about light. It was about control. A world split between day work and night rest was predictable. A world where people roamed in the middle of the night. Less so, authorities, both secular and religious, started frowning on the habit. Quiet hours became law. The night watch wasn't just to keep criminals out, but to keep you in. Over time, the culture of segmented sleep faded. Industrial work schedules hammered us into one continuous block of rest. Doctors began calling midnight waking a problem instead of a feature. And within a few generations, an entire rhythm of life, one that had existed for centuries, vanished from collective memory. Or did it? Because here's the strange part. If you wake up in the middle of the night today and feel oddly alert, you might not be broken. You might just be remembering something your ancestors never truly forgot. You lie there, staring at the ceiling in the quiet hours between 2 and 4 a.m., convinced you're cursed with insomnia. But maybe, just maybe, you're living a ghost of the medieval night. Sleep researchers in the 90s ran an experiment. No artificial light, just firelight and darkness. Within weeks, the participants naturally fell into the same two-sleep pattern our ancestors swore by. First sleep, waking hours. Second sleep. It's as if our bodies have a memory older than our calendars. One that's waiting for the dark to return so it can take over again. And that's where the bizarre habit stops being just history and starts feeling personal. If sleeping in 2 shifts was healthier, more natural, and maybe even better for our minds, what else have we modernized out of existence without realizing the cost? Because the deeper you look into medieval nights, the more you start to wonder if they were sleeping like kings. What exactly have we been missing? Imagine stepping outside during that quiet, in-between time. The air is sharp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. The village is still, except for the distant shuffle of someone else awake, moving carefully through the dark. Above you, the stars are so bright they almost hum. You can see the Milky Way as clearly as the road under your feet. The world feels untouched, unhurried, like it belongs to you alone. Inside, the fire is coaxed back to life, a faint hiss as wet wood catches. You pull your blanket tighter, not to sleep just yet, but to settle into those stolen hours, the kind of time that doesn't exist anymore. And if you knew what some people were really doing in those hours, what was whispered, what was hidden, you might see why the habit faded, and why it still makes certain historians uneasy. You're sitting in the glow of the rekindled hearth, shadows flickering on the walls. The room feels bigger somehow, like the darkness has stretched it into another dimension. Somewhere, a low knock at the door. 3 taps. Not hurried, not panicked, just deliberate. You know exactly who it is and why they've come. You pull the latch, and in steps a figure, cloaked damp from the night air, their breath a pale mist in the cold. No words at first, just the quiet ritual of hanging the cloak, shaking off the frost. Then, in a low voice, the conversation begins. It's not gossip, it's not small talk. It's the kind of exchange that needs darkness, the kind that would be dangerous in daylight. These hours were more than just a break between sleeps. They were a window for trade, deals, and secrets. Herbalists passed along rare roots and powders by candlelight. Lovers met in barns, their trysts hidden by the hour and the hay. Farmers exchanged favors, sworn in whispers over steaming mugs of ale. And then there were the outliers, the wanderers who moved like ghosts through the village, slipping between houses and alleys. Some were harmless, some were not, because with no light, no witnesses, the night belonged to those who knew how to use it, and not all of them used it well. Of course, not everyone embraced the waking hours. For many, they were laced with fear. The line between reality and superstition blurred easily in the dark. Stories spread of spirits that roamed the streets between sleeps, souls unable to rest, hunting the living for company. Wolves were said to creep closer to the edges of towns, drawn by the quiet and the smell of cooking fires. And there were other stories. Stories so old and so strange that even in the day, no one spoke them above a whisper. Whether you believed them or not, you still locked your door before first sleep. You still lit the extra candle when you woke, just in case. By the 17th century, the glow of cities began to erase the deep black nights. The waking hours shrank. In time, first sleep bled into second until there was only sleep. But in remote villages, far from the glow of candles in the city, the habit lingered. Grandparents told their children, "Don't waste the waking time, use it." And for a few more generations, they did. Then one day, it was gone. No announcement, no morning, just replaced by the hum of modern life. And maybe replaced by something else entirely. Something that still wakes us up at 2 a.m. for reasons we can't explain. You know that moment. You wake in the dead quiet. No dream to blame. No noise to explain it. Just the strange certainty that you're supposed to be awake. In medieval times, this would have felt normal. Today, it feels wrong. The stillness feels heavier. The shadows seem to lean closer. The hum of the refrigerator or the faint glow of your phone doesn't fill the space the way a crackling fire and whispered voices once did. But here's the thing. Modern science says your body is still wired for it. That waking in the middle of the night isn't a flaw, but a feature we've forgotten how to use. Researchers found that during that midnight gap, our brains shift into a unique state, part dream, part wakefulness. It's a twilight zone for creativity, memory, even problem solving. Your ancestors might have prayed, told stories, or plotted the year's planting. You might open your phone and scroll through doom-laden headlines. The urge is the same. The use of it, completely different. But then there's another detail. In the medieval gap, people often felt watched, not in a paranoid, someone's behind me way, more like the sensation of being part of something larger. It was described in diaries, letters, even sermons. And that's where it gets strange, because the descriptions don't always sound entirely human. The records are scattered, buried in monastery archives and the brittle pages of personal letters. A shepherd in 1423 wrote of waking in the gap and seeing two small lights in the hedgerow, neither flame nor star, yet fixed upon me. A merchant's wife in York confessed to her priest that during those hours she felt a presence sitting beside her bed, not touching, not speaking, just there. What makes it unsettling is how consistent these accounts are, across countries, decades, even languages. People didn't just feel awake, they felt, noticed. The folklore was quick to fill the gaps. In France, they spoke of les valeurs, the watchers, who drifted through villages between sleeps, unseen except by those they chose. In the German states, they called them Mitternachtsleute, midnight people, said to bring luck or ruin depending on how you greeted them. And in the British Isles, there were whispers of the hushed figures that stood at the edges of fields, always turned toward you, always silent. Most dismissed them as ghost stories to keep children indoors, but others swore they'd met them, and some claimed the watchers were the real reason for the waking hours, that the habit wasn't cultural at all, but something older, something learned from them. In 1971, an anthropologist named Roger Eckert stumbled onto dozens of these fragmented references while studying historical sleep. He expected to find quaint habits and charming customs. Instead, he kept finding these encounters. He noted that the descriptions matched oddly well with stories told by indigenous groups in the Americas, by Arctic communities, and even in some parts of rural Africa, cultures untouched by medieval Europe. Different worlds, different centuries, same strange figures in the night. And here's where it starts to gnaw at you. If this waking period was so universal, and the stories so consistent, what exactly were people experiencing when they opened their eyes in the dark? One letter from 1512 tells of a monk who woke between sleeps to find his entire cloister silent and dark, except for the faint sound of bells far away in a direction where no church stood. He followed the sound into the woods. He never returned. All that was found was his blanket, still warm. Some say the two-sleep cycle vanished because of technology, others because of changing work schedules. But there's a quieter theory, one that doesn't make it into textbooks, that maybe, just maybe, the habit ended when we stopped listening for whatever shared the night with us. We traded the fire's glow for the electric hum, the quiet for constant noise, and the deep, star-filled dark for the diluted grey of city skies. And in doing so, maybe we stopped being worth visiting. So tonight, if you wake for no reason at all, don't grab your phone right away. Sit there, listen, let your eyes adjust. Because for all you know, you're not the only one awake, and some habits are older than history itself. If you enjoyed this dive into medieval nights and the secrets they held, hit that like button, subscribe for more strange and fascinating history, and let me know in the comments, have you ever woken in the middle of the night and felt watched? Our next video, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on the woman who ruled an empire while her body was silently betraying her. A queen whose limbs decayed while her power remained absolute. A body rotting in real time while her subjects still bowed and kissed her hand. And after that, we'll meet the Duchess who defied centuries of pressure because she knew her bloodline was a ticking time bomb. You've heard the myths. Now you'll see the real horror hidden behind royal lace and gold leaf. The portraits get darker from here. All right, you've dimmed the lights. You're cozy. Hopefully not eating. Because where we're going, it smells like damp velvet, gout cream, and the faintest whiff of cousin kissing. You wake up in a stone-cold castle. Drafty halls, everything candlelit. Your corset is 2 sizes too tight. And your husband, oh, he's your uncle, or your nephew, or both. Welcome to European royalty. Let's start with the OG of inbred elegance. Juana of Castile, aka Juana la Loca. Now, people called her mad. But let's be honest, your family tree looked more like a family wreath. You'd probably lose a few screws too. Juana was the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella Yup, the same ones who financed Columbus, and they thought the best way to keep power in the family was to keep the family in the family, over generations, repeatedly. Juana's genetics. Think of them like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. By the time she came around, there wasn't much ink left. She married Philip the Handsome. Spoiler alert. Was a stretch, but let's give her credit. She loved him obsessively. Like, carry his corpse around for months obsessively. Yep, that happened. But was that true madness or the slow burn side effect of centuries of DNA playing the world's worst game of Uno? And then there's Maria Anna of Austria. Sweet girl, a Habsburg through and through, which meant she came with a jawline so prominent it could cut glass, and a gene pool so shallow it made a puddle look deep. At just 14, Maria Anna was married off to her uncle. Not uncle-like, fun guy who brings you snacks at family parties. No, her literal uncle, the kind you share a grandparent with. She gave birth to a son, Charles II of Spain, also known as the Bewitched. Charles had a jaw you could park a carriage in. He couldn't speak clearly, couldn't chew, and his autopsy revealed he had a heart